The Woe of Roanoke, Book 2, The Chronicle of Thomas Hume. The solemn scribe saw Thomas Hume, stood slow and strode the room. A thunderous crack didn't change his tack, and his face was a mask of doom. 10 whole years, 500 men, that dismal decade should have ended then. Think of all those lives not saved when you were not the vampire slave. Innocent play upon the shore, with friends abound, and then no more, because of grizzled finds of gore. Then my boyhood shrivelled and ceased, when I was shielded from the beast. In solitary isolation, no playmate to grace my station. A little hell, Hotel Stranraer, sick at night with all the fear, stiff with fright for year upon year. What other suffers might it bring, this spectral, wicked, winged thing? But what was worse was my seclusion, worse than all demon illusion. Lonely, only hotel guests would spare a word before their quests. It came to this, I'd face the fate if I could just play with a mate. One nightmare night when I 14, I woke to find a nightmare scene. The sky was bright from flame of torch, and piercing it was spear and fork. The sheriff, with a punk band baying, accused my father of the slaying, told him of the evidence, then built a gallows of our fence. We had bored 6 English types, 1 a lord and 4 were knights, and the dandies from the south had signed the hotel logbook out. I prayed to Jesus, pray it stop. The hangman was a man of frock. The noose was tightened by the parson, a forced recluse, now half an orphan. I held his feet so he could save a final word before his grave. Thomas Hume, I've groomed thee strong, so go, my son, and right the wrong. Seek you the truth, and with the proof proclaim our name with pride again. So I'm not scared, and my nerves are not frayed. The emotion is hate that's been displayed, and I'll pity you not, foul Agnes the Black, for you could have told and turned the tide back. Ostracised, and while we mourned, pains were broken, paint adorned. Mother scorned, as other owners of taverns who had hosted rovers. The landlord of the inn at Ayr, hunger's hikers last seen there. The publican of the pub, the Bear, lynched by just a signature. And many more, their loved ones too, grieving when the mob charged through. Any hamlet near and where, bones were washed up from the mare. A reject in her own commune, mother saw no opportune. A lunacy saw naked stray, she off the cliff at Morrock Bay. Necessity uplifted me. I sold the abode and I hitched on carts to Edinburgh and education. I wrote reports of the renegade courts and of the missing gripping the nation. My sight was scarred, street life was hard, so I turned a bard for my bread. Reams I filled of the streams of killed, I wrote in a broadsheet spread. I wrote in verse, for prose was worse, the crimes in rhymes made shorter. The Edinburgh Times bought up my work and employed me a court reporter. My odes on the rogue soon ran to the road of regal recognition, or the travesty inked I was going to be linked to his majesty and audition. I entered his chamber, the wordsmith painter, as favoured Makar Macabre. In his innermost ring I had swung the swing to a patronage from a pauper. I feigned effect for the royal seat, to list all lives been lifted. Although my work now obsolete, I penned the deceit of the twisted. Heed, priest Tor, be still your wail, desist your awful yelling. It is almost dawners as last of the spawn, you'll listen, for there's more needs telling. 'Tis of your kin that I'm steeped in sin, I played the gay laureate. 'Twas pride for my name that I suffered the shame, and rode the king's wicked chariot. So in Scotland's west still more arrests, in the hamlets, towns and shanties, and the people fled or stayed in dread of the ghoul or the vigilantes. Tracks went sparse from mass clearance in reaction to the slaughter, and on it went the disappearance, with scores rent off every quarter. And all the prayers in all the kirks, and all the pens from all the clerks, writing up such vast rewards, and fighting men with sharpened swords in mustered crews, try they might, they could not flush the phantom blight. A chain of plays I thus obtained from the tide of pain in the tyrant's reign, till a fortune shift in a winter's mist love slain in famed terrain. Stop calling me Belle, pleaded Claire, she said as she sat on a colt from the fair. Please stop, else after we're wed, that silly name I'll be known instead. Said Captain N of the foot regiment, your beauty it doth make my heart resonant. She reached to touch him, right close to me, as a cloaking fog rolled from the sea. Out from the silent smoky white, a violent croak that put to flight her mount, and then a pack of beasts materialized with screams, Bean feasts! A horde of 40 freaks came roaring, swarm then struck, and then they goring the horse that had sat Claire astride, and killed the colt and the would-be bride. N fought on as on they flooded, witnessed his betrothed get gutted, slashed his blade, banged both his gun, a sound of a drum, and the scum were gone. Merchants in numbers, crossing the night, spotted the officer in his fight, and rode to his aid to join the affray. The savages then simply melted away. Proof with N and his lost bride that the scourge of the land was but a tribe, a monstrous tribe of killers skilled, but brutes who bled and could be killed. The captain rode to Hollywood. Inside the palace in sombre mood, sought an audience with the king, and told him of the odious sting. The king was throned with Anne the Dane, and he well know of witches' bane, for limping to the Firth of Forth, the Gideon hit from the storm-boiled north. His childish bride implied black magic, swore she spied a cursed pelagic. Back in Denmark, repercussions found a slew of Satan's covens. Scotland also women burned, the massive trials were where he'd learned of sorcery, his expertise, to pen the demonologies. The Samson hag had howled a scorcher, confessed a verse whilst under torture, that Satan's foe upon this earth was James the Sixth, and soon the first. And so the king his ear was keen to hear of tell of Sawney Bean, requested his Castalian band, compose me ditties of the damned. Cast as hero in the title, routing evil by the Bible, a fictitious righteous homicidal, he checked the text for signs of libel. My story stirred him up a storm to arm his army in the morn, commanded N to navigate to where he'd come eradicate. His Highness led the holy force, 400 men and 40 horse, and sniffer dogs to sniff the rot, 4 cannon and some cannon shot, and gunpowder to blow their plot. A friend was N as we trekked the glen, solace in our loss, but we were not wiser men as we thought they troops of moss. Some sung songs stomp in the prairie to calm the king as he got wary. Harassed from a past kidnap, he asked his cortege, falter back. The coast was hunt to Banine Head till dusk had set without a thread. Then a musky smell of dread was scented by a sniffer hound. The fiendish cave was finally found.